All right. Hey there, and welcome to the show today. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And on the show today, we're going to talk about Harm OCD, or harmful intrusive thoughts. And this is going to be part of our series on intrusive thoughts as a whole. And so quick little reminders, if you are watching the show and benefiting, please help us out by liking and subscribing and leaving a nice review. It would really help the algorithm of the show. And then also, we have a intrusive thoughts workshop coming up that I'm going to be hosting at the end of this month in August. So I think it's August 30th, and we have a little link right down below where you can get your seat. It is a paid workshop, so I want to be transparent about that. But we keep the costs low just to make sure we can get people in. Well, there's a limited amount of seats, so please get your spot as soon as you can. And in the workshop, we're going to be covering 10 different types of intrusive thoughts, really what to do when you're experiencing them, and to make sure you're putting in the right tools to make sure they're not spinning into these loops. So, really excited about it. Hope you can join us. So today, talking about Harm OCD, really one of the Harm OCD, harm intrusive thoughts. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this gets said. I think one of the most important things to really understand about the Harm OCD is what it is versus what it isn't, right? And when we're experiencing harmful intrusive thoughts, the primary fear that most people have is that these thoughts are a reflection of a dark desire to cause harm to people. And not realizing the idea of these thoughts being ego-dystonic and ego-syntonic, like I talk about a lot. And so when the thought is ego-syntonic, it's in alignment with what you want. And when a thought's ego-dystonic, it's not in alignment with what you want. And it's so important, for most people that have harm intrusive thoughts. Generally speaking, the harmful intrusive thoughts are directed towards people they usually love and care about, that they don't want anything to happen to. A lot of times this is mothers with children, fathers with children. It could be, significant others. It could be towards your parents. It could be towards just random strangers. But the fear is generally something to the effect of, what if I snap and do something to this person, that causes them harm? And that could be like, front kicking them, right? Or, grabbing a knife and hurting them, smothering them with a pillow, right? Like these kind of intrusive thoughts, like it usually takes on the following form, like, what if I do this, right? And what I've come to believe, personally, is number one, most people have intrusive thoughts that pop in their mind. Now, whether they're the exact same thought that you had is irrelevant, because their intrusive thoughts usually will sprout out from their core fears. And when you're talking about intrusive thoughts, a lot of times they're rooted in that fear of rejection, which is why they take on these acts that are usually socially not approved of, right? Like things that get you arrested, things that get you rejected from society, things that lead to you being alone, right? And I'm not saying that it always stems from that, but a lot of times with intrusive thoughts, in my experience, that the fear tends to be the same, right? Like, what if I lose a loved one? What if I, this happens and these terrible outcomes happen? And that's usually a lot of times what we want to do with fear is we want to try to get to what we're really afraid of, right? And just being able to ask ourselves, okay, then what? And then what? And then what? And then what? Right? And really identifying that core fear that's there. And with intrusive thoughts, it's no different, right? Like that fear of having that thought. Well, it could be like, well, what if, because I had the thought, then I do it, then this and this and this and this, or what if that happened and then this happened and then this happened, right? And once we're able to understand that intrusive thoughts are just intrusive thoughts, and that's it. And we don't need to throw anything else on them. We don't need to throw any other labels on them. We don't need to throw any other, we don't need to take on specific diagnoses or disorders, because the thing that makes intrusive thoughts disorders are not, or like what someone can get diagnosed with, like OCD, is not the intrusive thought itself. It's our misperception, our overreaction to it, and then us engaging in compulsions that form this loop. So with Harm OCD, it's not the intrusive thought that's an indication of a disorder, because I firmly believe that most, if not everyone, has intrusive thoughts from time to time. Thoughts that pop into their mind that, they don't feel in alignment with, that aren't a reflection of what they want. Like, people have those experiences. That's a normal human experience. What becomes abnormal is when the person, has the thought, misappraises gives it some kind of significance, right? Through misperceives the meaning of it, develops a fearful or anxious reaction to it, and then engages in compulsions to try to make those feelings or thoughts go away, that paradoxically create a loop that creates more thoughts, more feelings, more behaviors, and this loop starts spinning. And when that loop spins, that creates disorder in your life. Like, that's what I believe, when we're talking about OCD and anxiety loop, like, it's not the thoughts or feelings, it is the loop that creates disorder. It is not an indication that you have a disorder, or that you're disturbed or broken or any of that. Especially when these thoughts cause such a, internal reaction, like anxiety, right? So, I think it's important when we're talking about Harm OCD or harmful intrusive thoughts, whatever you want to call it, right? To let go of the idea that there's this, that you're dysfunctional, or there's something wrong with you, that for having these experiences. And I understand that these are not experiences you want. And obviously there's tools and practices you can do to start making sure these loops aren't forming in your life. And I obviously very much encourage you. That's a great place to start, would be, in this workshop that we're going to be running, right? It's going to really help you understand this from a higher level. But, I think once you start to really understand the problem from a different level and solve it from a different level, it is just going to help your internal experience so much more, because as long as you're trying to fight off the thoughts, and as long as you're trying to stop the thoughts from happening, or stop the feelings from happening, or you're trying to stop your environment from triggering you, so you're avoiding, sharp things, or you don't want to go to restaurants, or you don't want to watch certain movies because it might trigger you, I need to be very transparent that that's going to keep you stuck in the loop. It just is. I've done this for a long time now. I know what people do that get caught in this loop, and I know what keeps them in it, and I also know what gets them out. And in order to really break out of this loop, you have to stop thinking the content of your mind is the issue, and you really got to start really understanding that your behaviors that are feeding this wheel are the real issue that we need to address, and that this wheel is actually the thing that causes disorder, not the thoughts aren't an indication that you have a disorder. Right? And stop internalizing this and making this about there's something wrong with you. Because when it comes to the intrusive thoughts, usually it's just a wound up nervous system and a excess of stress hormones and stress in the nervous system itself that tends to produce a whole bunch of thoughts in the mind. And our overreaction to that, and our catastrophizing, I don't know, about to say a word that wasn't even real there, but our us catastrophizing it and then trying to control it through behaviors is again what creates that loop. And when we understand that the loop is really the problem, and we start to really aim it and direct all our efforts into solving our loop, that's what produces results for people. That's the only thing I've seen produce results for people. I've never seen someone outthink this. I know, Mark Freeman said, you can't outthink a thinking problem. It's like, yeah, right, exactly. Like you're not going to win trying to think and rationalize this out. And that's why, if this is something you're struggling with, I really encourage you, join us on the workshop, or really make sure that you're focusing on solving the right thing here, which is this loop. Because if you're going the other way, it's just going to lead to headache and heartbreak, because I know this personally, and obviously I've worked with many people who have spent years, if not decades of their life trying that route, and it's just not effective. And once you realize that intrusive thoughts are not an indication that something's wrong with you, they're a pretty normal human experience, you can really start to change your behaviors more confidently and really break that loop. So I wanted to talk about this from kind of higher perspective today. And again, and just share these thoughts because, I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle with this and are hurting from this. So, and once you get what I'm saying here, that's the first step to really breaking free and taking back control of your life. So, with that said, hope this was helpful. Link to the workshops down in the notes below. If it's past the date of the workshop, we will have the replay available for you as well. So if you're watching this at some point in the future, you just check that out anyway. You'll be able to get access to it. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.